fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Falcoholic Live, episode 232, how the time flies with these episode numbers. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by my co-host, Adnan Ikic, at Say Which Way. Adnan, how we doing tonight?
Doing well. Full disclosure, I will be watching the Hawks game while I do this show. Full disclosure.
Okay, well, I appreciate the honesty, but luckily...
People have a right to know.
They do have a right to know. Yeah. I'm sure the takes will still be fast and furious, perhaps even more so with the background of the Hawks game. I don't know how it's going, but I'm sure we'll get an update at some point from Adnan on that front. But luckily, we do have another guest. He got in just before the buzzer. Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson, ESPN great Eric Robinson, by the way. How you doing, man?
ESPN Eric.
Come on, man.
It's never going to get old.
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Jesus.
Eric was like rushing home to make the show, so I appreciate that extra effort from Eric here, and we're glad he was able to pop on because we got stuff to talk about, right? Very busy day yesterday. Not necessarily for the Falcons, although they did re-sign a player. We'll probably hear about more re-signings and talk about more re-signings on this program. But the big topic, obviously, and what we'll spend the beginning of the show digging into is the whole Lamar Jackson saga. All offseason, it's been... I don't want to say I started the Lamar Jackson to Atlanta rumors, but like... I definitely started talking about it in like September as like kind of a joke, but like, it could be fun, right? If he does leave Baltimore. And then, it's sort of snowballed out of control from there where people were actually like linking the Falcons and Lamar. There was never really any firm evidence that the Falcons actually had interest in Lamar other than people sort of connecting the dots with their pursuit of Deshaun Watson, which is sort of a totally different thing. We get the news yesterday that Lamar is given the non-exclusive tag. And then immediately after, I believe the first team actually that was announced as not being interested in Lamar Jackson was the Atlanta Falcons, almost to just spit in the face of, I can't remember who it was, who tweeted out that the Falcons were like vigorously working on a trade package for Lamar like an hour before that happened. Well, I know one person. I'm not talking about that person. You guys know who I'm talking about there. There was one other more national person that said something. But at any rate, apparently the Falcons are not interested and have never been interested in pursuing Lamar, according to, 5-6 different national voices and Josh Kendall of The Athletic and Mike Rothstein, two local, Atlanta coverage reporters. So the saga has allegedly come to a close here. There's also the backdrop, of course, of the rest of the NFL sort of also simultaneously saying they're not interested, which is very bizarre for a quarterback who's going to be turning 26 next year and has won an MVP a few years ago and is one of the best athletes in the NFL, most electric players, all this stuff. Eric, I can tell you're just chomping at the bit to get in with some takes. So I'll let you kick off the Lamar Jackson discussion.
Because it smelled funky from the beginning.
Yeah.
The thing is, how come, first and foremost, the timing of these reports. Why did they wait for him to get tagged for them to say we're not interested? How come this couldn't be made public beforehand? That's my thing. If you already knew in your mind, we're not interested, we're not going to make a go for it. This could have came out last week, last month, when these rumors were already circulating. Why the minute he's tagged, literally the minute he's tagged, you declare, and not only is he tagged, but he's tagged in a possible way that still makes it, possible for you to get him. And you say, we're good. Like the time, it just is, not to mention, you guys been around the draft enough, around free agency enough. It's smokescreen season. Okay. I don't know who, but somebody's lying. Okay. There's no possible way that this many teams are just disinterested in Lamar, let alone, regardless whether they think he's worth 200 million, 235 million, 260 million, whatever. These teams didn't even bother with an offer sheet.
And all of them need quarterbacks.
All of them need quarterbacks in some form or fashion. All of them need it.
So
yes.
What's suspicious to me right now, and I'm on the train of I 100% think that the owners are colluding. The NFLPA has come out, and reports are, they haven't fully come out, but reports are the NFLPA is very worried about collusion. They have been very worried about the owners sort of banding together and putting a stop to this guaranteed money, nonsense, in their eyes after the Deshaun Watson stuff. And we're not even talking about Deshaun or Lamar to Atlanta or any of the Atlanta connection right now. Just in general, what's very curious to me is that the Ravens seemed very confident in something like this happening, because you do not put the non-exclusive franchise tag on a franchise quarterback like this. Like, it should have been a foregone conclusion that the Ravens would have moved the money around. They would have made it work to put the full-on exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, because right now, sure, they can match, but if another team gives Lamar a contract that they're not comfortable matching, and that figure does exist because the Ravens still have not come to terms with Lamar Jackson on a contract, the compensation is 2 first-round picks, which is nothing for Lamar Jackson. Like, it's nothing. Russell Wilson went for 3 firsts, a couple players, and some day 2 picks. Deshaun Watson, who had all the off-the-field issues and who hadn't touched the field in a year and who was facing a suspension, went for 3 firsts, a third, and a fifth. Like, 2 firsts for Lamar is nothing. And legitimately, it's just so fishy to me that they were so confident in giving him that non-exclusive franchise tag. Now, I've never seen something like this where every single team just comes out and they say, look, we're not interested in him. Every team, one by – sure, if it was just the Falcons, sure, I get it. But it was the Falcons, then it was the Raiders, then it was the Panthers, then it was the Jets. Like, there's no way that this is just a coincidence right now.
It was teams that have the following names at starting quarterback technically right now: Desmond Ridder, Jarrett Stidham, Sam Howell, Zach Wilson. It's right.
Or Walker.
Tua, a beat up Tua, who's his future is somewhere kind of sort of hanging in the clouds a little bit. There's some questions there. It came. They all came out of nowhere, and they all came back to back. There's no way you can look at this and say something is not up. And I would not be surprised if there is collusion going on. I would not be surprised if the owners somehow secretly banded together and say, hey guys, what Deshaun and Cleveland did screwed the rest of the league, but we're going to reset the market our way. And this is their way of resetting the market by all turning their backs or turning their just declining Lamar. It sucks because it seems like Lamar is being punished for it.
Yeah.
The type of player he is, the type of player he has been on and off the field. He doesn't have any baggage, doesn't have anything hanging over his head. He's a former MVP. 26. It feels like he's being punished for what Deshaun and Cleveland did last year.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And eventually is going to result in that. It's going to result in the market being reset in a different way. Now, you look at it a certain way. I mean, Kyler got 160 guaranteed. He's second. I think he's second right now, and Russell is third, somewhere in that neighborhood. You might have to swap the order there between those two.
Kyler is definitely second. I'm gonna double check right now what it is exactly.
Yeah.
I could have sworn it was in the 180s, but I could be wrong.
I think over the cap had it at once.
Yeah, total guaranteed. Yeah. Total guaranteed is 189.5.
189. Okay, so he's second, and then Russell's third, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Lamar is much better than both of them.
He is. So to look at even disregard Deshaun's numbers. You can look at Kyler's numbers, Kyler's total guarantees, and say, well, yeah, he deserves more than him. And I don't even know if he's going to get more than him. I'm not sure. I don't know where this thing is ugly, and it smells funny. I don't know where it's going to end up at. If I'm a Ravens fan, I'm still not comfortable. He has a non-exclusive tag, which means teams can still talk to him. You're still dealing with the player without an agent. I'm not letting go of that option of him just saying, hey, you know what? I'm not playing this year. If he doesn't want to play, then the Ravens find themselves in a certain situation, because this is a guy that's had season-ending injuries in the past 2 years, right? So he's not him playing on a one-year deal, basically, and having to go through this cycle all over again. It's probably something he's not wanting to do. He wants security, and I don't blame him.
And there's a couple more factors in it, which don't bode well for the Ravens. One is, I don't know if there are hard feelings, but the Ravens general manager and coaching staff and front office, they seem to have been on a crusade to just bash Lamar Jackson since that injury happened. Remember, John Harbaugh was coming out. They did not specify that Lamar Jackson's PCL sprain was, I think it was a grade 2 PCL sprain, which was a 6-week injury, which, there was some extra swelling. And Lamar Jackson, it got to the point where Lamar Jackson had to come out himself and tweet out himself, hey, like, this is what my injury is. Like, there was some extra swelling. There's no way I could have played. If you listen to the interviews, if you listen to what John Harbaugh was saying leading up to the playoffs, it made it sound like Lamar Jackson just was bailing and he just did not want to play. He didn't specify anything of the injury. It was just, he'll be here when he's here or something like that. And then you have their general manager who is throwing Lamar under the bus for his own failures of not being able to get him a proper number one wide receiver over the past few years, saying, oh, well, that's going to be a lot more difficult if a quarterback making this much money. You just had a quarterback on a rookie deal, and Mark Andrews is good. I love Mark Andrews. Outside of that, you've given him pretty much no real weapons.
And if you add in what's been going on, you remember Rashad Bateman came out publicly last week with his tweet against DaCosta and his comments. So there's some disconnect there. Hollywood Brown didn't leave the Ravens franchise on a great note either. So it's not just Lamar. Like, the front office and whatever's going on in that locker room in Baltimore right now is not comfortable.
Yeah.
And a Ravens fan will probably tell you everything is fine, but it doesn't look fine. It really doesn't. And even in the situation that Lamar comes back and he plays, there's some friction there. It has to be. There's no way. They've been doing this thing for 2 years, and they still are nowhere near close to a long-term deal.
If he does come back, he does also have the option of playing on that deal. If he suffers any injury, the Ravens, would you blame him if he says, all right, I got hurt, I'm pulling back? I don't think Lamar's that type of dude who's going to, bail on a potential playoff hunt, but that possibility is there if he's playing on the tag. The other thing is, if he gets tagged this year and they tag him again next year, that's a huge cap hit. No player, I don't think any player has ever been tagged 3 straight years for a reason, because that tag goes up, I think it's 10% next year over year, and then it goes up 24% after that. So feasibly, if Lamar wants to, if he wants to risk it, and he shouldn't have to, if he wants to risk it, he can beat the tag, so to speak, especially given how much money and how much long-term money the Ravens have invested. But that would mean playing 2 years with no long-term security when he is a free agent right now. But yeah, that situation is just an ugly situation. From the outside, it feels like an ugly situation. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. All these teams have come out and stated this. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I would not put it past the owners at all if this was collusion. This absolutely falls in their ballpark of, trying to show the players who's boss.
Yeah.
But
now I will say from the Falcons' perspective, at least, I'm not sure if their approach to it is collusion-like. I think this may very well, with them bowing out, this may very well be them saying that we tried last year with Deshaun, it didn't go the way we wanted to. We don't want to go through that again. Understandable. I am mildly surprised, however, that they didn't at least kick the tires on it.
Right. I mean, that's the weird part. Not that they didn't end up doing it. Yeah.
But that's right. Like, why announce it? Why come out and say?
Why announce it? Right.
Like, you don't have to say anything. You can just shut up.
Just not offer him. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, they went out of their way to make this a story. All of these teams went out of their way to make this a story, as if they're sending a message to the players saying, hey, we're not doing this guaranteed shit.
Yeah.
And if there was one team that could have, who was the one team that has been latched to his name for months now? And not once did they really come out publicly and say, no, we're not interested. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
It's literally the moment he's tagged, they made it known publicly, when they could have made this known a week ago. They could have made this known at the Senior Bowl. They could have made this known at the season-ending press conference. All that type. All these times that they've been asked about Desmond Ridder and giving him a fair chance and all this type, they never addressed it. They swept it under the rug. It was hearsay. Like, it's just. But now suddenly you come out and say, yeah, we're good. We're backing out. It's just,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's a pretty crazy situation, and I think you guys basically covered it very well. So props to you, because I've talked about it to death on like 3 other shows over the last 2 days. So I really don't mind you guys going in depth with your opinion on that. But yeah, I echo what you guys say. It's a very odd situation. I don't think it really has much to do with Lamar personally, and that's what sucks, because I think he's a good dude. He just happens to be the one that's getting stuck with this because of the Browns' just complete ineptitude with Deshaun Watson and that whole situation. And
he also so happens to be the one premier quarterback that was next in line for an extension after Deshaun. Now, let me ask you guys this. Hypothetically, let's say this was Joe Burrow. Do you think, guys, you guys think it would have played out the same way? If this was Joe Burrow saying, I want 260 guaranteed, you think it would have played out the same way?
If it's the exact same scenario where he and the team aren't really like doing it and aren't really getting along, I think so, yeah. Like, I think the owners have this crusade going against the players right now.
Right. Because if it's the collusion that we think it is, play style should be taken out of the equation. It shouldn't matter whether you're a pocket quarterback, you're a mobile quarterback. If the collusion is the way we think it is, this is just a stance on guaranteed money for quarterbacks, regardless of how you play the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of an agent. And I know some people in the chat have said you don't need an agent. And like, I would say for a lot of players, that's probably true, especially like lower level players. There's not really a lot of nuance to a lot of these lower level deals, but the quarterback mega deals and prime time free agent deals, those are the ones that you do need the representation for, because I don't know how a player would be able to keep up with and like maintain contact with all of these different teams. You need an entire firm to manage that.
There's so many layers to a contract. It's not just money. There's so many layers to a contract.
Yeah,
but
and
part of me also thinks all these teams need a quarterback. Someone may yield. Like, despite the reports, despite these teams coming out, like, who's to say there won't be an owner that just says fuck it, like, we're throwing him a bag.
Dan Snyder. Yeah. There's the rumors that he's going to do it just to give a big middle finger. Yeah.
Would you really be shocked if Arthur Blank isn't that owner?
I would be shocked if it was Blank, because if this is an owner,
What about Mark Davis?
Mark Davis doesn't have the money. Let's be completely honest.
Mark Davis has that screwed the league. I'm
He
going to do it
does.
my way.
Yeah.
His dad did it for so long.
Yeah. I think it would be Dan Snyder if anyone. But
I'm just making the Arthur Blank connection because we saw him get involved last year, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying we have any inside sources or anything like that. We don't. But we saw Arthur Blank get involved with Deshaun last year. We know Arthur Blank is now in his 80s. We know Arthur Blank has been desperate for a winner in Atlanta. And, this is really a chance to bring in that most important piece for it. And some of that would, also cherry on top, fill out those PSLs. I'm not saying it will be Arthur Blank, but that's just something to keep in mind. And I know the owners are having this united front right now. And if this is collusion, we're not saying it definitively is. We don't have the proof. It just smells very fishy, but it wouldn't surprise me if there is someone that just reneges on this, that just strays away from the pack. And when that happens, the dominoes will fall. The house of cards will fall in that case.
Yeah, and that's why I felt that this is smokescreen season, and I see all these teams come out and say this, and I truly believe that one or two of those teams are like. I truly believe one of those two teams can wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, it's Lamar. Like, I mean, this because you got to look at it this way. The Raiders right now, again, as I stated, Jarrett Stidham is their starting quarterback. With everything that they have, they tag Josh Jacobs, they're bringing him back. They have Devontae Adams, they have Darren Waller. Hopefully, they can get him healthy. You got a pretty good edge rushing duo in Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. If you're a team like that, you're playing in a division with Mahomes, with Herbert. Now Sean Payton is in the equation in the AFC West. If you're a team like the Raiders, you really are going to sit here and be stubborn and say no to Lamar, and to guarantee money just to trot out Jarrett Stidham in that division?
No, they're signing Jimmy G.
Okay, well, I mean, seriously, like that's gonna break the ice. Like Jimmy G is gonna be the one. Like, no,
Jimmy G is the savior.
Mark Davis is gonna look at this situation and say, hey, like, you know what? Screw the league. The league hates the Raiders anyway. Bring on Lamar. Like, it's just these teams. It's just coincidental that these teams that said that are teams that literally have very few, if any, options at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean it's very true, and like the longer it goes without Lamar getting a contract from the Ravens, the more of a chance there is of this breaking down, and particularly if it gets after the draft, because after the draft, I believe he doesn't have to sign the tag until June or whatever. Maybe it's even July. So
I thought it was till week 10. He doesn't have until week 10 to sign, right?
Until week 10, if he doesn't want the contract to toll, they have until July to work out a long-term extension.
That's right.
They don't work out a long-term extension.
To work out the extension, but
he has to play under the tag. He will have to sign the tag. If he doesn't do it by week 10, that contract tolls, and next year's tag is the exact same figure as this year's.
Yeah, so he's going to do that. But the point I'm trying to make is that teams don't have to shell out this year's first. They could wait until after the draft and then put in an offer sheet, and then it would be 2024, 2025 firsts. And I do wonder, like, if there's still no deal done after the draft, if that's when it all crumbles and we see a bunch of offer sheets come in. So,
because you also have to think about it. By that point, when it comes to matching from the Ravens, where would their ability be to match later on in the process, after the draft, after free agency has died down a little bit or played itself out for a month and a half? You know, where's their cap space at that point for them to match it? Would it even be feasible for them to match a certain contract?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like if it's May and somebody offers him $200 million and they've already kind of spent a few funds here and there, would they still have the ability to do so? Would they be willing to do so at that point? I don't know. Maybe
in that case also, the Falcons, for example, I'm just using the Falcons as an example because this is the team that we're talking about. This is the show we're doing.
It's the team that's been tied to him the most.
If the Falcons, for example, wait until after the draft and they sign Lamar to a front-loaded contract that the Ravens really can't match and feasibly can't do anything with, because the Falcons have that type of cap space to do so, you all of a sudden owe them 2 first-round picks in 2024 and 2025, if this is in May. You all of a sudden are not giving them a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The first rounder, if the Falcons, for example, or the Panthers, for example, sign Lamar as soon as the tampering period begins next week, you're owing the Ravens a top 10 pick plus another first rounder. I'm not saying that that's not worth it. If the exclusive tag was signed, like that pick would be going to Baltimore either way. But you have a chance to secure and to hold on to that top 10 pick and to, pair Lamar with another top 10 pick this year for a nice win now move.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a part into it as well. I think Lamar can also be patient because legitimately all it takes is one. Like these teams, and I do think that there will be an owner that strays away from that pack if it is.
Yeah, it very well could be, especially in this year's draft. There's a number of teams in the top 10 that can definitely use a quarterback. If you're one of these teams that covet one and you're on the outside looking in, that could drive. That can force your hand right there. You can be sitting here if you're David Tepper, who's been for so long trying to get a quarterback, and he wants to get one this year, and he misses out on the top 4 this year. David Tepper can say, you know what, screw it, Lamar. Like it's just
he's a newer owner too, so he's not as entrenched.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas, I would be surprised if Blank does because he's such a core member of the ownership group. The Falcons are, Rich McKay's the leader of the competition committee and all this stuff. The Falcons are really an entrenched organization. I know nationally they're not looked at as this big mover and shaker, but in terms of the actual NFL owners, Blank and McKay are actually very involved and very respected in terms of the ownership group. So that to me is why I sort of think that it probably wouldn't be Blank. With Watson, Blank had that personal connection. We know that he called Blank personally and made his plea, and that seemed to get the Falcons up off the couch. The other thing is that I actually don't think Fontenot and Smith are in on going big for a quarterback. I don't think they were in on it last year really either. I think that it's sort of the hand got forced. Not that they would have been upset about getting Watson overall, but I don't really think it was their idea. This year, I think it's really not their idea, and I think their whole quarterback interest in general's sort of a smokescreen. I mean, obviously we'll find out soon enough, but that's not to say they won't add a quarterback at all. I mean, I do think they're going to add somebody, and that's one thing I'm sure we'll talk about here in the second half of the show with the free agency stuff. But it's a weird scenario. I think that Lamar will be a Raven. I think that's probably the other side of the coin, is that everyone's sort of well, he's not really leaving Baltimore, so we're not even going to bother. This is just they're just testing the waters to see what offers come in. But everyone sort of kind of gets the feeling that he's really not going to leave Baltimore. So
I mean, we also assume he'll be signed by now, and he's not.
Yeah, it's true. So I guess it's up to him. I think Rappaport was saying today that an offer they've offered him a lot of guaranteed money, more than Kyler allegedly, and it was turned down by Lamar. So yeah, I mean that's sort of what the buzz was, that they did offer him more than what was previously reported, and it's still been declined. I mean, he stopped short of saying Lamar wants fully guaranteed contract, officially, but
Because Diana Rossini ruled out the Raiders, and then an hour later said that per sources they haven't ruled out any quarterback options. So yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, is this okay? This thing is wide open. That's all I'm.
Yeah,
this
it is. It's not really over yet, even though everyone's sort of acting like it is.
It hasn't even begun, really.
It hasn't begun. Nope.
The end is the beginning. It's like an Ouroboros. It's like just an infinite circle of just, takes and speculation, which is really just every NFL offseason. But with this in particular, it's going to be a fun one. I don't know if the Falcons will really be involved or not, but for now, it's all quiet, but it could change in an instant, just like the Deshaun Watson thing. I mean, the Falcons weren't involved until they were, right? So kind of crazy, but it is what it is.
That was the longest week ever.
Oh my God. I was trying to have a vacation. Yeah. And then it was just like, oh yeah, we're going to maybe trade for Deshaun. Oh, terrific. Thanks for that, Falcons.
Yeah. Monday was like Deshaun. Yeah, right. Wednesday was like, hey, this might happen.
Deshaun?
Thursday, like, oh shit, this is really happening. Like, it's
there was that Schefter bomb just out of nowhere about how the Falcons are going to meet with Deshaun Watson, and then it just turned into
it took off.
Yeah,
it did. Yep, crazy stuff.
I'm still convinced, like, the team had a deal in place. Like,
the
deal was finished.
I firmly believe, and I think that we sort of know that it was a done deal to Atlanta until Cleveland swooped in.
Because Cleveland was ruled out originally.
Yeah.
And, then they swooped in with the guaranteed money. Deshaun turns to Atlanta, says, match this. And I think that's where Fontenot and Arthur Smith ended up sort of winning out.
Yeah. They were like, we can't do this. We cannot do this. So I think that the Falcons are going to be happy that they didn't get Deshaun. That's my opinion. I'm happy now. I'm already happy. So
I like Deshaun as a player, but I'm not giving him that much guaranteed money. No, I'm sorry.
And the thing is, like, you understand it because even the fan base at that point, like, the people who were rooting for the team to get Deshaun, I think even they were like, all right, this was unreasonable.
This was questionable.
And like, I understand, like, the team not doing this, not matching this money.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll transition to our free agency segment here. I did want to get to a question from Jason Gaines with the $2. Thanks so much, Jason. Asking about the Derek Carr contract and how the Saints were able to sign him despite being over the cap. And there's a very simple answer to that, Jason. You're right that the salary cap number for Carr in the first year is pretty minimal, so that helps. But you actually don't have to be cap compliant. So you actually don't have to be under the cap until the official start of free agency next week. Right when free agency starts, every NFL team must be under the cap, or the NFL starts voiding the most recent contracts that were signed until you're under. That doesn't ever really happen because teams generally know what they need to do to get under, and they get under. But until then, you could do whatever you want. You could sign 500 guys and give out funny money, whatever you want. But you have to be under by the beginning of free agency next week. That's when it starts actually counting for real money purposes. So they can sign Carr, trade for him, do whatever they want. They just have to be under by next week. And we're going to probably see several more restructures, maybe 4 or 5 more restructures for the Saints. Maybe, some more trades or cuts or whatever, because they still got a lot of money to clear.
And that's part of the reason why his contract was structured a certain way, because I think his cap hit in year one is like $7 million.
Yeah, it's like $7 or $8 million. I think it's like $7 million if they add 2 void years, which apparently they're going to do. So
they did like this too, I think.
Yeah.
Like their new restructure with Taysom.
Yeah. So they're restructuring a lot of guys. Again, this is just their strategy of just keep pushing the money forward and praying that the cap explodes. And it's hurting their depth every single year they do this. This year, that Saints team had no depth. It's only going to get worse, but they do at least have a good quarterback now. So, maybe that'll help them. I don't think it's really going to get them where they need to be for that much money, but hey,
The Define good.
I mean, I think Derek Carr's a good quarterback. I think he's like a top 15 quarterback. I don't think he's like this elite starter, but he's definitely better than anything they had last year.
Derek Carr. So literally, like it's funny. Like I got it off of Falcons Reddit.
Yeah.
But his numbers were literally identical to their quarterbacks last year. So, completion percent. This is the first one is between Dalton, Winston, and Taysom Hill, and the second number I'll say is Derek Carr's. 66% completion percentage versus 60.8%. All right, that's whatever. Like, I don't care about completion percentage. But 3,969 yards for the Saints quarterbacks last year, 35-22 for Carr, and both had the exact same 24-14 touchdown interception ratio.
Beautiful.
So,
chef's kiss.
I don't know. Carr's pretty mid. Carr's very mid, and they're paying a lot of money.
They're paying him a lot of money, but there's literally no other way for them to get a quarterback. They don't have that. They're not going to get one in the draft. Winston and Andy Dalton ain't it. So they had to go sign somebody, and they had to pay to get Carr there. And they're basically, I mean, I think
there's a way.
Yeah.
They're avoiding it, but there is a way.
Oh yeah, I mean they could do what the Falcons did and
time to start rebuilding, guys.
Yeah. No, they're not going to do that. Yeah. Their timeline is now 3 years. Yeah. In 3 years they have to blow it up.
Yeah, because, but feasibly they can't because of how much dead money they owe these guys.
Yeah. Like they really can't blow it up. The cuts don't save them money. So
yeah, this is their consequence for the cap hit stuff, for kicking that can down the road. So the Falcons could, because you can just eat that dead money for Ryan last year. You can eat it for Julio. You can even eat it for Deion Jones. But the Saints, they can't move anyone right now. If they move any of their guys, that dead money will destroy their cap. So they're in a situation where they have to they've dug their hole and they now have to keep digging.
Yeah, it's killing their trade leverage too. Everyone knows oh, they're gonna have to get rid of guys. So why are we gonna look at CJ Gardner-Johnson? They couldn't extend him. He was unhappy playing there, so they had to trade him, and they didn't get good value for CJ Gardner-Johnson because the Eagles knew they had to get rid of him. So,
but that's along with even the guys that are, at the top of their depth chart that they could dangle out there as trade bait. Michael Thomas is beat to hell. He hasn't been healthy in 2 years. Who knows what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara? Lattimore is coming off a season in the injury. So even the guys that they may want to trade are they may not even be preferred assets right now from other teams.
But I also keep saying it, and Saints fans continue pounding this drum of salary cap doesn't exist for Mickey Loomis, and there's never going to be any consequence. There's already been consequences. They had to trade CJ Gardner-Johnson, who ended up being one of the best safeties in the league last year.
It could be a fact this offseason.
Yeah, also, that's the guy where I'm shocked that the Eagles did not tag him. There were reports that the Eagles were going to tag him. How did they not tag this man? They lost Marcus Williams. They lost Teron Armstead. They have lost Pro Bowl level guys. They have lost, very important players, and now all of a sudden they're a very mid team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the consequence. The consequence has happened. Just because they haven't had to void anything, and just because they get under the cap doesn't mean that there aren't any consequences. Ask any general manager, ask any actual team builder how handicapped they are right about now.
Yeah.
Well, Cam Jordan's a year older.
Yeah. I mean, it's they feel exactly like the 2018 to 2020 Falcons, and that team was just on a steady downward slope every single year, and they just kept trying to push the money forward and fix it, and it blew up in their face and didn't work. And except that the Saints are way worse in terms of the cap, way worse.
But see, the thing with those teams, we knew that there was really only one viable option to get out of this. There was only one way, and that was to move on from Matt and Julio. Like we knew it was going to happen at some point in order for this team to truly climb out of the hole that they were and try to not necessarily start from scratch, but like we really gotta rebuild this thing here. We really gotta fix the foundation of this team. We knew that. I'm sure the Saints are like, they're at a point where we know in the back of our mind, like we got to move on from some more of these guys, but we just can't at this point. We're just treading water right now.
Yeah.
They're having to do gymnastics just to get under the cap.
Mm-hmm.
And you could justify it. Like, this has been going on for a long time. You could justify it when you had prime Drew Brees. You could justify it when they were legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And they were. They didn't win it. And when Drew Brees left, the first thing they should have started doing when Drew Brees started declining, because it's clear that Drew Brees, like, toward the end was just not very good. When you started declining, they had to look in the mirror and they had to realize that, we have to rip off this Band-Aid. We have to bite the bullet, whatever figure of speech you want. But they didn't. They doubled down.
Yeah. And the one thing they didn't do, because we saw it from afar when it came to Drew Brees and his declining, he was declining for a good 2 or 3 years. They never said it's time to get his heir apparent. Yeah. They never said that.
They always passed.
They possibly could have had one by now.
Yeah, the Marcus Davenport trade. Remember that? We all thought they were trading up for Lamar, and they took Marcus Davenport.
Right. And they took Davenport. Yeah.
Yeah.
They never did that. And now look at them. They're in a situation where they're going to go through their third starting quarterback in roughly a year, and the third one is going to be the most expensive one.
Yeah. And it's just like it's like they're like, oh, well, this makes us the favorite in the NFC South. But what the hell does that get you? Like, the favorite in the worst division in football? Like, I mean,
that now in March.
Yeah,
free
and it's like
the draft hasn't even happened. It's easy to say that now.
Exactly, but it's like that does sure, okay, you make the playoffs, winning the NFC South. Look at how that went for the Bucks, who got their teeth kicked in the first round. And then look at like are they threatening the Eagles? Are they threatening the 49ers? Are they even threatening the Cowboys? I mean,
we should sure that they're better than the Panthers. Let's be real.
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, like, let's assume that they're just the best team in the NFC South, and it works out that way. But but that doesn't that's not going to get you to the Super Bowl. That's probably not even going to get you a playoff win. Like, if you're the 4th seed, and you're going to have to probably play the Eagles or the 49ers in the second round, you're not going to compete with those teams. You're not good enough. No, I'm not.
About the Saints.
No, it's just
team wasn't good last year. Yeah. Derek Carr being in uniform is not going to elevate the team. It may not even elevate the offense, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. I'm not worried about.
And if not for them getting a pick for Sean Payton, which was just like a Hail Mary, they wouldn't even have a first round pick, and it's a late one at that. Yeah,
it's a very late pick, yeah.
So it's like, this team went all in, failed, went all in, failed, went all in, failed. Then last year was just sort of flailing around, trying to put off the inevitable, and then went all in again. And it's like,
imagine being a GM and you have a list of restructures every damn offseason.
Yeah.
Literally.
They designed their contracts that way. They literally design their contracts so they can restructure 2 or 3 years in a row.
But also with the Saints, with their best offensive player is staring a suspension in the face right now. That Alvin Kamara video is very damning.
The video is here now, so
yeah.
He got away with it last year because they kept pushing off the court date, and that was expected. But this is probably going to be 6 games minimum. I'm just speculating, but 6 games, maybe even more.
It should be more, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And I was talking about this on another show today. It was if you look at the Falcons and the Saints, rivals, all this stuff, but their GMs are from the same tree. Mickey Loomis, Terry Fontenot. They could not be doing it any differently. Fontenot is taking the complete opposite approach to what Loomis is doing. Polar opposite strategies. And it's these two guys came, Fontenot learned under Loomis. This was his mentor, and he's I'm not doing that. So
Yeah,
it's
you can
really
look at it-
interesting. Yeah.
you can look at it and say Fontenot all these years studied Loomis and said, yeah, I'm not going to do it that way.
I'm not doing this. Like, I'm getting out of here because I'm.
When I get my chance, I'm not going to do it that way.
And you know that, like, and we speculated when Fontenot came because we had no idea.
Yeah.
We just had to go off of what we saw, like in New Orleans, and we speculated, like, is he gonna do what Loomis did? And this tells me that Fontenot was probably the voice, like, over there saying, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to start doing this.
Maybe we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, they kept telling him to shut up. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was that meme where, like, it's like the boardroom and, like, everybody, and, like, he makes a suggestion and everyone just, like, glares at him, you know?
Yeah. What do you know?
Yeah.
Like, shut up, Terry.
But the thing that I love, the underrated thing is he tried to poach Loomis's salary cap guy. Like, Loomis's, like, salary cap, as soon as he came to Atlanta, he tried to poach that, like, salary cap, like, guru in New Orleans. It's like, you know, helping them figure out all of these ways to stay under the cap. He didn't even do that out of a need because he was never going to do that. He just wanted to do that to screw over the Saints.
No, he was playing Jenga. That's what he was doing. He was pulling the one little ball. He was trying to tear down the front office. That's exactly what he was doing.
The gamesmanship started immediately. He was trying to tear down our biggest rival.
I appreciate that he tried.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. We got off on a big tangent about the Saints because it's fun to talk. Like, watching their implosion will be fun, and it is kind of relevant to the whole discussion, right? Because how they manage their cap is interesting, and it carries a lot of implications for the Falcons and the league, you know, at large. But the Falcons have so far done the complete opposite. So far, I think Fontenot looks a lot more like an Ozzie Newsome style GM, and he did reference Newsome as being one of his big, you know, inspirations when he was hired. And it seems like he's leaning more towards that style of sort of restrained spending. And, you know, we haven't seen it yet because of the situation, but I do wonder if they'll lean towards maximizing draft capital, comp picks, and just re-signing their own guys as opposed to going out and spending big in free agency every year. Now, this year, I think, is probably going to be a different story, and we're going to get into that right now. Like, when the Ravens, you know, were doing their thing with Ozzie Newsome, the roster was really good. So you don't necessarily have to go out and sign a bunch of free agents. You need to add a few key pieces here and there and re-sign your guys, but there's not really a lot you have to do. And because the roster was so good, they'd have a bunch of good free agents every year, and they would just let some of them walk and get a lot of comp picks out of it, and that would just keep bolstering their quiver of picks, and they'd have, you know, 8-10 picks every single year, and it was great. That also, I think, makes some very savvy trade downs, and I think we've seen that once with Fontenot. Well, I wonder if we'll see it again, but you know, so far he's already traded down more than Thomas Dimitroff, right? So, or for more like pick value, but
we're
it's
still
really
waiting on. We're still waiting on that first round trade down since 1990, though.
Yeah. So it could be. But yeah, getting into free agency, like, there were a couple things I wanted to hit on just to kind of prime people. You know, the first one being the Falcons did re-sign Lorenzo Carter. Not like a massive deal. It was 2 years, $9 million, potential to be up to 10, $4.5 million per. Seems like a pretty reasonable contract for Carter. I think the more interesting thing about that re-signing is that it signals that they may not be going to the Dennis Allen style front, because if you look at their edge group now, it's Malone, Ikic, and Lorenzo Carter with Ade Ogundeji. Those are basically all 3-4 outside linebackers. They don't have any 4-3 guys. And like the 4-3-3-4 thing isn't really that important, but I do wonder if Nielsen's not necessarily that concerned with the way the front looks. That maybe he's comfortable with it being a 3-4 base, or using more outside linebacker types. Like, he may be less married to that specific Dennis Allen system than people think. And so maybe the front won't change as much as some people were, like, in terms of those stylistically, it won't change as much. The one place I think that we will see big change is the secondary, because they fired all the secondary coaches. They brought in a whole new thing with Jerry Gray and all this. So I do wonder if the secondary is where we see the big schematic shift and the front stays more or less, because DMP's front, I mean, it's also it uses a lot of blitzing, and Dennis Allen uses a lot of blitzing. So maybe it's just that style, but with more 3-4 personnel, and I think that could work just as well. So, what do you guys think about the Carter re-signing? You in favor of it at this point?
I like it. Like it's a very reasonable figure. It's 2 years, $9 million. It can go up to 10 with some incentives. $4.5 million per year on average. I think that's incredibly reasonable, incredibly savvy for a rotational guy, a rotational pass rusher who I think was second on the team in sacks last year. He was productive. Over the past 2 years, he has 9 sacks, which, I mean, I'm happy with it. Like, nobody's saying that Lorenzo Carter is going to come in here and be this game breaker as a pass rusher, but he's a guy that, deserves a spot in the NFL. He deserves his rotational spot. He has his niche, and I mean, I'm here for it. Like, I think it's a very savvy move, and I'm very happy that they brought him back. And it makes it a little easier knowing that this team pretty much sacrificed a 4th-round comp pick last year to re-sign Carter, excuse me. So it makes me feel a little better knowing that, hey, that wasn't just a 1-year thing in what was never really going to be a winning season. That's more so like, something that will benefit the team long term, because I'm still salty about those comp picks. We lost 2 4th-rounders because we signed Carter and Marcus Mariota. The Mariota stuff, that
sort of had to happen. They needed a bridge starter, but the other ones is just kind of tragic. But not gonna have to worry about comp picks this year, I don't think. So because they have,
if we somehow got a comp pick, I would be shocked.
Yeah, they're going to spend way too much money.
Horribly wrong.
Yeah, they're going to spend way too much money. So, but the other interesting free agency topic is Kaleb McGary, who did not get the tag, and what the implications of that might be. Eric, did you have any thoughts on that? Because I was sort of expecting that he would at least get the tag, if not an extension. And it seems now that maybe he's going to actually at least test free agency, but possibly just walk entirely. What do you think about that decision?
I honestly thought that the tag was a little much for me, and I felt like the team might have exercised just getting a long-term deal in place, which might have been better towards the cap. But they didn't tag him. They're going to let him test free agency, and I kind of sort of can understand. It was the figure for the tag that scared me, but the reasoning behind the tag I completely understand. This is a guy who was drafted, alongside Chris Lindstrom, and we saw Lindstrom blossom over the years, but it took him, pretty much 4 years to finally find his footing. You kind of sort of want to be hesitant. You kind of sort of want him to do it again, basically. So I understand the reasoning behind the tag, but the figure would have been they would have been 18 and a half, right?
Yeah, 18.2, I think. Yeah.
Also, it would have been a bad look rejecting his 5th-year option just to franchise tag him, because the 5th-year option, you can rescind the 5th-year option at any point, and that would have been $4 million less, $4 or $5 million.
You can't. Less? I believe 5th-year options are fully guaranteed now, so you can't.
Are they?
Yes. Yes. So that's 5th-year option would have been fully guaranteed, so you can't rescind it anymore. I believe you used to be able to, but
all right, that's my mistake. I take that back, because I know the team did. The team has rescinded 5th-year options in the past, but I mean, hey, that's a big win for the Players Association on that one.
Yeah, that was the thing with like Vic Beasley. I think that was one of the first years where it was guaranteed, and it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you, $15 million guaranteed. So get it, go ahead and now play harder for us, Beasley, when your next year's salary is fully guaranteed. So see how well that worked.
Playing basketball during minicamp.
Right. So McGary, like, it's tough because he definitely played well this year. Was a great run blocker. The pass protection got to like an average level finally, but he's still just an average pass protector. I've always sort of had concerns there because he has length limitations. I mean, we knew that coming out. I think he's learned to mitigate those more, but he's still vulnerable to facing a lot of length on the outside. He's just never been a very good pass protector, and to me, that's what people get paid for. And you look at like someone like Jawan Taylor, who is like, I think there's a non-zero chance they let McGary walk, and then they just sign another tackle like a Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor's a very good pass protector, extremely high-end pass protector. Complete opposite, like 34.5-inch arms, great pass protector. Was a really bad run blocker last year. But like you look at Dwayne Ledford, and I think the Falcons actually have a really good offensive line coach now, at least in terms of run blocking. Like it seemed like every single offensive lineman the Falcons had got a lot better at run blocking from 21 to 22. So I have confidence that like Ledford can coach up Taylor's run blocking enough. Like I just do. So
we really, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we really need to give Dwayne Ledford his flowers, man.
Yeah.
Like that was the single best part of the team last year. Yeah. Like seeing that offensive line go from a general liability to absolutely elite, even if they weren't elite pass blockers, and I think the team is still worried about McGary's pass blocking long term, because last year's scheme really, really played into McGary's hands. This team ran the ball 55% of the time, and McGary wasn't the best pass blocker when he was asked to do it. So I'm fine with parting ways if that is what the team decided. I was actually even in favor of tagging him and letting him play on the tag for a year, just to make him prove that he can do it again. Because I don't want a Sam Baker situation from 2012 where he has a career year, and this career year would be even more fool's gold because it's fully in this run heavy scheme, and then this team was paying Sam Baker's dead cap hit up until a few years ago still.
Yeah, it's true. So no, I mean I think with that coach in here in Ledford, I think I would be confident in coaching up Jawan Taylor to be at least a competent run blocker, and the pass protection would be drastically better. And it's important to point out, McGary's going to be 28 next year. He's 6 months younger than Jermaine Ifedi, for those that don't remember that discussion from last offseason. And Jermaine Ifedi's had like 3 contracts at this point. Jawan Taylor's just going to be 26. So like I think the better investment would be going for Jawan Taylor over McGary, but I think everyone will basically feel that way, including the Jaguars, including other people in free agency. The good news is the Falcons have the money to overpay anyone they want. So if they feel like, we need to get the tackle settled, they could do it. They could get any guy they want. Same thing at defensive tackle. Same thing, Jesse Bates, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Javon Hargrave, whoever it is, they can go out and pay the guy they want more than anybody else if they so choose. That's the ball's in their court. I don't know if Fontenot's going to be inclined to do that. I think there's certainly a scenario where the Falcons sort of get a lot of these like second tier free agents, and where they're not really overspending and they're giving out a lot of like $8 to $12 million contracts for these like, good starter level guys to just really bring up the floor of the roster a lot, and then, hoping to hit some home runs in the draft. But McGary is one of the more interesting ones, because if you're not paying him and you don't pay Jawan Taylor, maybe they re-sign Ifedi to be that spot starter, which, I mean, a lot of us thought that maybe Ifedi would even end up starting in camp because, McGary wasn't very good the last year. Maybe they draft a tackle. This is a really good draft to need a tackle at 8 because there's a lot of good ones, and it seems like the way this class is set up, there's probably going to be 3 quarterbacks in the top 5, and there's 2 blue chip defenders that are going to go early, and you could definitely have the number 1 tackle at 8. Like, that could be a real scenario, whether you like Paris Johnson Jr. or Broderick Jones. Unfortunately, Peter Skoronski, I really don't think he's a tackle. The man came in with like 32-inch arms, which is like 3rd percentile. And he's only 6'4", which is like 8th percentile. So, like, I'm sorry, Skoronski, the tape is great. He's a guard. I can't do tackle for him. So, like, you're looking at Jones and you're looking at Paris Johnson, and I think one of those guys, those are blue chip level tackles. I'd be happy with either one of them. you're not getting your top defensive player, but that could be an option there as well.
I would love O lineman at 8 at this point if we're letting McGary go, because you will have to pay a lot for any tackle. You'll see how much McGary gets in the open market. Like, good for him. He's about to generate generational wealth for he and his family. Yeah. But I like the idea of getting a right tackle here, and even you could even groom him to the point where when Jake Matthews parts ways with the team in a few years, you have your left tackle all of a sudden of the future. You have Lindstrom there. I'm never against building the offensive line, especially if you can get the best offensive lineman in the draft where you're picking. So I think that would be a very savvy move. But I mean, I wouldn't be against picking a defensive player, but I'm never against picking an offensive lineman.
Yeah. So I mean, go ahead.
If the plan here is to stick with Desmond Ridder and let him blossom and let him grow and let him develop, I honestly feel a little bit better if I give him a veteran-led offensive line.
Right.
Instead of having going the rookie route and getting a guy like Paris Johnson Jr., I can't frown at that. You're walking away with arguably the best tackle in the draft. That can, like Adnan said, you can plug him in at right, and then in a few years later you can swing him over to the left and call it a day, and he'd be your left tackle for the 10 years. But I'd rather just give him that offensive line that is, they're polished, they're ready to go. I want to give him the best possible option when it comes to development. Give him that offensive line, give him some solid difference making talent at the skill position, and we'll see what happens there when it comes to him and his play.
What about if the quarterback you're trotting out is a 26-year-old veteran who won the MVP a couple of years ago?
Lamar Jackson doesn't need an O-line, okay? We've already established this.
Put me at right tackle. Lamar still is going to be okay. I'm not.
No. Yeah, but no, I mean, it is interesting, and I don't disagree. It's sort of why I thought they would tag McGary and just keep that at least going for one more year and see if he could continue to improve. I think.
Am I the only one? I'm sorry, but am I the only one that's shocked at the lack of activity with the tag?
Yeah, there weren't very many this year.
League wide.
Yeah, league wide, just in general, not just the
only. Yeah.
Like,
I'm a little shocked.
Yeah, like Saquon got tagged, sure, but
Jacobs got tagged.
That one was actually a little shocking to me. But
Deron Payne.
But
Tony Pollard.
The Chiefs decided not to tag Orlando Brown.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles, I have no idea why they didn't tag Gardner Johnson.
They didn't tag anybody.
Yeah.
They didn't tag anybody.
Yeah, we knew that the Bengals probably weren't going to tag Bates because they tagged him last year, and because they have Burrow and Chase Torrey about moving forward. But I mean, I'm just sort of shocked. I mean, I'm even shocked that the Bills are letting Poyer go.
Right.
Poyer go. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah,
or Tremaine Edmonds. They could have tagged him too. So, yeah.
Like the Eagles have 3 really good players that they let go. This market is suddenly a lot better. Like free agent market league wide is suddenly a lot better than I expected it to be.
A lot more groceries on the shelf now.
Yeah,
and
it's a good year to have money. Yeah,
it's a really good year to have money. Yeah, like it's a really good year to have the second most cap space in the league.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what they do. We definitely covered a lot of ground over the last few weeks. We had Eric on for some of that too. So you guys know already the top free agents. You don't need us to put them out there, but hopefully this is like a good primer for you about where the Falcons are at. To clarify. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Real quick, those names that he tossed out of there that were not tagged that we thought would be tagged, is there anyone that you were surprised didn't get tagged that you assume would be tagged, but now you want the Falcons to kind of sort of take a swing at?
Gardner Johnson. I assume that was a foregone. There were even reports. Even reports that Gardner Johnson's getting tagged if they don't agree to a deal. He's actually top of my list now. He goes ahead of Jesse Bates.
I'm
because
not quite there, but yeah,
I-
I don't
I'm there.
blame you, but yeah.
I'm there.
I'm there
I'm
with
there.
Gardner Johnson just because of his versatility and
Yeah.
because he was an absolute ball hawk last year.
He did a great job. Yeah.
He averaged an interception every other game in the regular season last year.
Pretty nuts.
Although if my money was on anything, I would put my money on Bates being the sign.
Don't get me wrong. I'll be thrilled if they get Bates. Like I'm not saying, oh yeah, how dare you get Jesse Bates?
How dare you?
But honestly, I'd rather have Gardner Johnson.
It does make a lot of sense
CJ
too.
Train.
Yeah,
I'm on the CJ train, but Bates is a close second for sure. Jordan Poyer would also be a great get. However, I did hear his interview talking about how he would like to go to a state that doesn't tax him very much. So the Florida and Texas teams have the advantage there. But yeah, like
you know what?
Go ahead.
How interested would you guys be in Tremaine Edmonds?
Very.
I like it. Yeah. No, we talked about it on. I went on Will McFadden's show, Believe in Falcons, yesterday or the day before, and I know that was one of the guys we talked about, and it makes a lot of sense. They could use a linebacker certainly. I don't think they're going to bring back Rashaan Evans now. On that point,
I don't think they will either. And a Tremaine Edmonds, Troy Anderson pairing sounds so good. It's two big athletic linebackers that both can move from sideline to sideline. That's what Nielsen had in New Orleans with DeMario Davis. Like why? Man, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah,
I like that. That's the one name I would toss out there that wasn't tagged that I thought would be, and I kind of sort of would like the Falcons to kick the tires on that.
That's a good one. Yeah, Javon Hargrave too. I know he wasn't like rumored, but I love Javon Hargrave. I've loved him forever. I'm in on that.
And the Eagles are losing a lot of talent. Like if they do lose all these guys, a lot of talent
on the defensive side of the ball.
And don't underrate the fact that they were losing both coordinators too in the same year.
Yeah. Yep. Bradbury is another name that they could lose.
The top cornerback in the market.
Yeah.
They'll definitely keep some of them, but I don't know which ones.
Keep some, but they're not going to be able to keep everybody. They're going to lose two key players on that defense. I honestly think they'll lose Bradbury and Gardner Johnson.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Draymond Jones from the Broncos too. There was buzz he was going to get tagged, and he didn't get tagged. So there's another one. Yeah. Yes. Pair him with great. Eric's in. Yeah. He's all the way in. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So we're in. I think we're in agreement there. There's a lot of options. I know the hype is going to be that people are going to expect the Falcons to be signing like all the marquee guys. I would caution you to like calm that a little bit. We don't know what they're going to do. Like I think they are going to sign bigger name guys than we've been seeing for many of the last few years. I think that's a given, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's a lot of $8 to $12 million contracts, like I was saying earlier, like David Onyemata, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, like these types of guys instead of CJ Gardner Johnson and Jesse Bates and, Javon Hargrave and all these. Like we may see one of those star guys. Like Jesse Bates seems like the hot name right now that's likely to be the one. But then you get that guy, and then I think we could also see like Onyemata and Jordan Phillips and Tremaine Edmonds or whatever. These guys that are going to be in that like 8 to 12 million per range. So don't put all your marbles in like, oh, if they don't sign 2-star free agents, then I'm going to be pissed off. Like I wouldn't necessarily expect them to do that given what we've seen from Fontenot thus far. I think he's going to be careful with the money and not just go buck wild now that he has some. Now, obviously, we don't really know what he's going to do now that he has money, but yeah.
I expect maybe one or two big fish, but I think 75-80% of the free agency class is going to be in that mid-tier range, honestly.
It's just nice to realistically be talking about the big fish. Yeah. This is a team that signed two big fish. And
it's nice to be talking about free agency period. We're not used to this. We're used to just moving on to the draft this time of year, thinking like, okay, they may sign one or two guys to cheap deals, but No, we're really going shopping this year. Like, this is cool. I like
it. It
this.
is cool. It's fun. It's fun. It's there's a little nice energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice energy for once. All right, let's get to these questions before we sign off. We got Mad Tom K with the $5. Thanks so much, Mad. Quick Lamar question. So say Lamar ends up playing on the tag this year, and then we redo the whole scenario again in 2024. Do you think the Falcons would be more likely to go after him then? Yes.
That's hard to say.
If Ritter is not it, and it's obvious that he's not, I hope that he is, obviously, but like if he's not, and it's clear that the Falcons go into next season, it's like, okay, quarterback is holding this roster back, then absolutely I think they would be at the front of the line for Lamar or another big time quarterback.
If that's hard to say in all likelihood, based on their track record and how they move, I think it would be more likely for them if the scenario plays out where they're literally a quarterback away. I honestly think the scenario will play out where they may trade up in the draft.
Right. It could be that too.
Kaleb Williams.
Yeah. Like Drake May, Kaleb Williams, whoever. But yeah, I agree. Like I think next year I think is the year where they go after a quarterback after we know.
I thought we were taking Anthony Richardson at 8.
Oh, there we go. That's the real secret, the open secret, because they've been grinding that quarterback tape, Adnan. So.
and that's why I don't get the take of the team is just saying that they don't want they're pulling out of Lamar to spare Desmond Ritter's feelings. Like, first of all, Desmond Ritter's a third rounder who's proven nothing. Like,
they don't care about his feelings.
Wait a minute. You think now they care about feelings? Do you see what they did to Matt Ryan last year?
Did you see how they did Matt Ryan dirty?
And the thing is, Matt Ryan was like a franchise icon.
Yes.
Like Ryan was like Matt Ryan and Desmond Ritter aren't like on the same level regarding like last year Matt Ryan and this year Ritter. But also like they're talking about how they're grinding the quarterback tape. Like if they were really trying to spare Ritter's feelings, then they'd be talking about, oh yeah, Desmond Ritter's our guy. We're not like looking at anything else.
Come on, man. They're gonna mean to tell me they're gonna take it easy on his feelings, but tell Matt Ryan to go stick it somewhere? Come on.
No, and I wouldn't want them to take it easy on his feelings. We need to know if he's got what it takes to be an NFL starter. And like if you're an NFL starter, you got to be able to take that sort of stuff, fight through it, and come out the other side as the starter, which is why I think they should sign like a Taylor Heineke, Jacoby Brissett, someone to push Ritter, someone who I think Ritter has a pretty good chance of beating, but like he needs to be pushed at least. You can't just bring in Logan Woodside, my Toledo brethren, but like still, it's Logan Woodside. You can't just have Logan Woodside in there for Ritter to just not even have competition for the starting job. Like, bring in someone that can reasonably push Ritter, like a Taylor Heineke, that's not going to break the bank, and see what happens this year. And then you go into 2024, one way or the other, if you need to get a quarterback or not. Like after a full year of Ritter, or if Ritter doesn't beat out Taylor Heineke, either way, that he's not the guy. So, you either know that he is or that he isn't, I think, at that point. So I do think that if the Falcons get to 2024 and they have a big quarterback need, that, they would be even in a better position to get Lamar than they were this year. Nico with the $2, thank you so much, man, says, have you guys read Calvin Ridley's letter? Yes, I have. I can't speak for these guys, but I think Adnan did for sure. I know it may have come out while Eric was at work, so I don't know if you had a chance yet. But
I did not.
Okay, definitely read it. It's a good read. Yeah.
Like he like we're all very proud of Calvin Ridley for sharing that, because it's not easy. And it's definitely like we're all rooting for Ridley in Jacksonville for many reasons. Like shout out to him, like as a guy, but also it really helps.
Yeah. Everybody wins. Like if he's great in Jacksonville fans win and Falcons fans win when he signs that extension. So everybody wins. I love that trade. That trade is so good. It's like just so much fun for everyone. Like everybody wants him to succeed. So
shout out to Fontenot for that.
That was magic. But yeah, he also asked, "Are you?"
Just a really good scenario. Like he sent him to a good
he is.
situation. Jacksonville's on the come up, and Trevor Lawrence is a hell of a quarterback.
He is. I
Plus,
know
he's
Nico
back-
also.
he's back home.
Yeah. What's that?
Mm.
Back home. Yeah.
Plus, he's in Florida, back in Florida.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Nico also says, were you disappointed to learn about how the previous regime handled his injury, that sort of thing? Yeah, I mean, that's a big blunder by the training staff to misdiagnose a broken foot. I mean, it seems like that should be obvious. But you know.
I mean, I don't want to tell the doctors how to do their jobs, but it's 2020.
I mean, yeah.
How, like, you have everything like there.
Right. And it's like, it's sad because it sounds like, you know, Smith and Fontenot came in and they brought in a new staff, and like within the first visit with Ridley, they like sent him to a specialist because something didn't look right, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, it's broken." So it's like just, I don't know what was going on with that. I don't want to speculate, but it's disappointing. Everybody makes mistakes, even medical professionals. It happens, but that's a big mistake with your number one receiver. So
that's a big mistake for a professional. If you're the medical staff of a professional NFL team, and these are multi-billion-dollar organizations, like this isn't just your local clinic.
Yeah.
That's a huge, and that's something that could really have fucked him up long term.
Oh yeah. So it's bad that happened. I feel for him. I hope for the best in Jacksonville. We all do. And I appreciate him sharing his story because I think he caught a lot of flack, you know, from a lot of people. And I just think that we should not ever assume that we know what's going on with the player off field because there's a lot that most of it does not get reported, rightfully so, because we don't need to be invading these people's personal lives. But you never really have all the facts, so try to give these guys as much grace as you can, you know. So it's a tough job, you know. It's a tough game, tough media. You know, we try to be nice usually, but not everyone is, obviously. We got Brandon with the $1 after that one-handed catch. What are the odds y'all think that Arthur Smith goes for Darnell Washington? I mean, I think the odds were like decent before the catch. I don't think the catch is going to move the needle, but you know, it's an underrated pick in the second round for them, I think, because I do wonder if they'll evaluate Washington as like the best receiving weapon available at that point because of how much tight end usage they have. I do wonder if they consider just kicking Pitts out to like outside full time, bring in Washington and run 12 with Washington and Pruitt, you know, that sort of thing.
He's one of the, like, he's definitely like, he seems like an Arthur Smith type of guy.
Yeah. He's obsessed with tight ends, obviously. Yeah. So,
but also like my thing is like Washington looked good at the combine, like not just that catch. Yeah. Is he gonna like work himself out of Atlanta's range in the second round is now the next question.
It's really because
he may not be there. Like he may not even be there.
It's crazy because this tight end class is just absolutely nuts that like Darnell Washington with a 9.65 RAS, which is 96th percentile athlete, by the way, was like the 5th best tight end in this class because like we had a perfect 10. Yeah, the Georgia tight end.
Is this a Georgia thing?
No, I don't think so. I think Darnell Washington honestly is just a great.
I mean,
tight end.
He is a champion, Eric. Well,
we know that, Adnan.
We got to get some dogs in here, Eric.
Give me Stetson.
Michael Mayer, you know, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta. None of those guys, right?
Oh, I'm in on Sam Laporta. I'll have that conversation.
Go straight to the Georgia tight end, right?
I don't think Mayer is going to be there in the second round.
Did we draft the Georgia tight end last year?
We did. John Fitzpatrick, yeah.
We did. We met our quota. We got one Georgia.
We drafted 2 Georgia players. We're done for a decade now.
Okay. We need to draft 2 per year. Washington, and then get me Stetson. Get me a championship pedigree quarterback who's going to be as old as Lamar Jackson will.
God, if you say we should draft Stetson Bennett,
he's a champion.
Can you imagine? Well, my thing is like, and I'm obviously being facetious. I don't want Stetson Bennett. Can you imagine training camp if Stetson Bennett is there? Like those Georgia fans are like wild. They're gonna like come to Flowery Branch to support Stetson. The second Ritter does anything wrong,
if Ritter drinks his water too fast, they're gonna say we don't want him. We don't need him as a starter. Look at Stetson. Look how calmly he drinks his water. Like, no, I prefer to have Stetson on field.
Yeah, but come on. But Ritter, when he made it to the college football playoff, he lost. Stetson won all of his playoff games.
Oh my God,
that's true. He's right.
Damn it.
You can't refute the stats. You can't argue with those stats, Eric. You just can't. Brandon Brass says Anthony Richardson in the first and Washington in the second. That's a good one. But the real big brain, the real big brain is Bijan at 8 and Washington in the second. That's the real big brain play. That's the real big brain.
I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
That's a good note to end the show on. Yeah.
I'm out of here. No, I can't do this.
That just reminds me. I don't know. Like, I think I mentioned it. I don't know if I mentioned it in the Discord or on the show. Do you guys remember Bleacher Report's Game of Zones? If you guys watched that,
I think I have seen that.
There was an episode where they were showing James Harden meeting Mike D'Antoni, and Mike D'Antoni is just going through all of these plays and all of these books on offense. And James Harden asks him, he's like, but what about the defense? And D'Antoni looks at him and he's like, what? Oh, he's like, my philosophy is half the defense and double the offense. That's what the Falcons would be if they did that.
Just don't even care about the defense. The defense doesn't matter, okay? It's like whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter, the defense don't matter. So just, get the offense going and we're all good. So at least they could be good at something, right?
I might as well go ahead and say it while I'm here.
Yeah.
The combine was this past weekend, and you know what? I'm on the Bijan Robinson train. I don't care what anybody says.
He's here.
Good.
I'm on the Bijan Robinson train. Now, of course, there has to be some things that happen in free agency first.
Yep.
You got to check some boxes in free agency first. But if they do, I want Bijan.
He ran a 4.47 while stumbling. Like, he stumbled in the 40.
It wasn't even a straight line.
That should be a 4.4. Like, that could have easily been a 4.40 or high 4.3.
Yeah.
Yes. You want to make life easy for Desmond Ritter? Let him hand the ball off to Bijan and Tyler Algier.
You don't need a receiver if you draft Bijan. He is your receiver.
Yep.
I mean, he could play the slot. He did.
But think about it though. I mean, how are teams really gonna? How would you really defend that?
Right.
Because he's either going to attract one more body to the box, which leaves one-on-one matchups on the outside for Drake and Pitts, or they're going to respect that and they're going to leave it to a 7-man front, which run lanes everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why not pistol with Algier and Bijan Robinson? But they did that a lot last year, right?
They run the ball 55% of the time. You want to, and not to mention, you want to save some shelf life for Algier. You want to help him out a little bit. Get him another back.
Yeah,
let him split carries, 15 to 18 carries a game. Let's do it.
I just want the chaos. Like, Bijan's great. He's like, I think Bijan's like a top 3 player in this class in terms of talent.
He absolutely is.
So it's like, it would be like fun and like all this stuff, but like ultimately just the takes from that would be so nuclear molten that I could live off of that for like at least 3 months in the summer.
So Falcons Twitter would melt down in the Civil War, as we know. That'll be fun. But the thing about it is, I think there's a way to sort of make both sides happier. Bijan, because of positional value, I've been seeing him mocked in the 20s. I've been seeing him mocked all the way down there. What if a quarterback is on the board? Like, what if Richardson's there at 8? And a team really needs to jump the Carolina Panthers to jump up to 8. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I don't know who would, who wouldn't. Washington, the Jets,
Titans.
Someone like that.
Titans.
Yeah, and they trade up, and the Falcons get an extra day 2 pick, maybe even an extra first rounder, because we're talking about a quarterback here. And what if they take Bijan in the teens?
Yeah. I think people would be totally in if they traded down. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yes, you trade back, you enhance your draft picks, and you get the best player available and a top 3 player in the teams.
Yep, could happen. Could be a thing. Bijan Robinson to the Falcons. You heard it from Eric first, everyone. So, but yeah,
Yes.
it's that would be one of the more fun outcomes just because of how nuclear Falcons Twitter would go over it. And I would just, because we got 2 months of dead period. Like that would be the one pick that would like light the timeline on fire for probably 2 whole months. And that would definitely sustain us. So,
And then next thing you know, both Algier and Bijan will both run for 1,000 yards, and everything will be okay. Everybody will be fine. Everybody would think great pick ever.
I just want to address this take of we don't need Bijan, we have Algier. Like, that's good, but Algier is not going to be your bell cow running back. Like, nor should he be your bell cow running back.
Nor should he be, because you're sitting here saying we're fine with Algier, but in 4 years you're going to say let's move on from Algier. If you wanna improve the shelf life of a running back in the NFL, you get decent depth behind them at the very least, and you don't build a run game where you just hand it off to one guy for 350 times. Those days are over. You need a number 2, or let Algier be that number 2. You have a 1A, 1B.
Bijan, if Bijan was a slot receiver, he would be a day 1, day 2 pick.
He would still be a day 1, day 2 pick.
Tavon Austin went 8.
They run the ball at 55% of the time. I swear it will work out if you can split 15 carries between both of these guys. The run game will be just fine.
Yeah.
You won't miss.
Imagine
though.
Yeah. It's like, imagine like Bijan out there just destroying people's ankles, and then it's like, oh, now we're bringing in Tyler Algier for 3rd and 1.
Yeah,
it's like now you got to tackle Tyler Algier after chasing Bijan's ass around the field. So
or vice versa.
Yeah,
Algier just broke off.
He bludgeons you for 3 downs, and then Bijan comes in and just
Bijan. Like, damn.
Let's draft Bijan and let's trade for Derrick Henry too. Let's just run a wishbone every single play.
We don't even need a passing game. Who even needs a passing game? No, that would be.
In all honesty, seriously, that would definitely, if you want to help your young quarterback in Ritter, that would definitely make things a little bit more comfortable if you really bolster the run game behind them, not just having one back. Because let's be honest here, guys. Cordaro's not getting any younger, and part of me feels like he could definitely get phased out a little bit. So
yeah, let him return kicks. Like,
let him return kicks. Let him get a little bit more time at receiver. Let him be a 3rd down back. Like,
that's what I was hoping they would do. Like, I was hoping that they would just put Cordero everywhere. Just like one play in the slot, one play in the backfield. Like, just confuse the shit out of the defense in having to talk to Cordero Patterson. Like, manufacture the ball into his hand like a few times, because Patterson cannot carry the load, and he doesn't have to anymore. But we've seen him break down each of the last 2 years, like straight break. He has never taken that many carries in his career. And I mean, like, you have a chance to really make something special with these weapons. And I don't know. Does this Bijan like talk? Is it not a little bit reminiscent on the Kyle Pitts pre-draft?
That's why I try to tell people. It's like, if you think they won't take Bijan, why would you think that? They took a tight end at 4. Like, they don't care.
You haven't been paying attention. You have not been paying attention at all. But man, they've been preaching BPA for years, for as long as they've been here.
They took London last year.
Like, I mean, it's funny.
Everyone said year 1. Everyone said they need an edge rusher. What do? They took a tight end. Came into the draft last year. They needed an edge rusher. What do? They took a 6'4" receiver. Guys, start paying attention here. Okay, they're going to draft to however they want to. Whatever talent is on that board, they don't care about position.
Yes. And remember Pitts. He was talked about in, let's talk about in the 20s, for example, the way Bijan is right now. He was, he steadily like climbed the board little by little, and then he had that combine where he ran that 4.40, And, over time we got to a point where, we ended up taking Pitts at 4, and I don't think any of us were surprised come draft night after all of that after all of the pre-draft rounds after the combine. We went into that draft, I remember, and none of us were shocked when that pick was made at 4. The only difference between Pitts a couple of years ago and Bijan this year is we haven't had George Costanza just bombard us with Bijan Robinson takes. So I think that's true. That's the only thing we're lacking at this point.
Yep, that is very true. But it is really interesting. And look, like, the Falcons are going to draft whoever the hell they want. Okay, like, they do not care what we think. Because I was adamant last year they wouldn't take a receiver after taking Kyle Pitts, and guess how wrong I was after the year before, saying they're definitely going to take a quarterback at 4, and they took a tight end. So I have learned, as you all should learn. So
not only were we adamant about taking it, let's be honest here, we didn't expect Drake to be the receiver. We thought it was going to be,
did, but
maybe Jameson Williams, but the Drake was somewhat of a surprise pick. Bijan, I'm telling you, man, he's in play, whether you guys like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. He's absolutely in play for sure. But yeah, well, we went off on a serious Bijan thing. So forgive us for going 30 minutes over.
Isn't that a weekly thing now? Like, we always go on some Bijan Robinson tangent.
Probably either Bijan or Lamar, and maybe Lamar will be put to bed temporarily, but probably not. So, got to go off on some kind of tangent. That's how you know it's a live show. But yeah, guys, we do appreciate everyone for tuning in, sticking with us for 90 minutes. We will be back next Wednesday for the free agency frenzy. By the time we record next Wednesday night, probably we'll have some signings, or at least some very strong buzz about signings. So we'll definitely have stuff to talk about next week. We'll also have a mock draft coming on Friday on the pod. So you can look forward to that as well. Before we take off, want to thank our guest, Eric Robinson, at @Eric_Robinson, for coming on. Eric, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
No, actually, I'm not. Like I always do when I come on here, man, I plug the Falcoholic. This is the time of the year to be on Falcoholic.com. Draft underway. I know Kevin is churning out plenty of scouting reports and draft takes there. I know Adnan is putting in a lot of work, as he usually does every offseason. Draft's on the way. Free agency is next week. Falcoholic.com is where you want to be.
Yeah, good stuff. Totally agree with all that. Also with us, of course, my co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you'd like to plug before we take off?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Eric's sentiments on the Falcoholic. We've been any news that's breaking out, any news that's coming out, I feel like we've been very on top of it the past few days. We're all just itching to get going. The 3 best times of the year to be on the Falcoholic, I would say. I would rank 2 and 3 are tied. I would rank the draft and free agency right there, and the number 1 best time is during training camp, because our coverage is too exclusive. It's way more exclusive than anyone else's. Sorry, everyone else, but not really. But yeah, so yeah, stick with the Falcoholic. Well, we're eyes and ears are all ready right now. I've been writing out some breaking news stuff, some reporting stuff, and it's going to explode. The powder keg is all prepared, and it's going to blast off come Wednesday, which is, I think, Wednesday's the legal tampering period, and this is going to be the most fun summer off season as a Falcons fan since I can remember, legitimately, like
of all time.
2016, maybe of all time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's gonna be a fun one. Really looking forward to next week. I will actually be on vacation during free agency once again, because that just happens to be when spring break is. So that's when. Well, Caroline is a professor, so we always go on vacation during her spring break. So I will be out, but I will be doing a show, because I can't not do a show on the first night of free agency. That's just not. There's no way to get out of that. But Yeah, well, we'll be doing that, but definitely stick to thefalcoholic.com for all of that sweet content and tweets and stuff like that over the next week. We'll hopefully hear about some re-signings in the next couple days too. I do suspect there will be more than just Lorenzo Carter. And yeah, guys, you can follow me at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. I'm Kevin Knight. Please do like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, click that little notification bell thing. I think that helps us out too. Really appreciate everyone for doing that. If you're listening to the podcast audio, leave us that 5-star review. Really appreciate that too. Check out the community Discord at the link. It's right there. It's also in the show description. And yeah, guys, again, really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with us tonight. We will see you next week when the wait is finally going to be over for free agency. I feel like we've talked about it for months and months, and we have, and finally we're going to get some kind of resolution. Will it be the resolution we want? Well, I guess we'll see. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, joining us here on the Falcon.